Our positivity is important because it stirs faith in us, the people that we lead and those who lead us. Our positivity is huge. Our enthusiasm is significant. It has a ripple effect, not just to the people that we lead, to the people we lead with, but also to the people who lead us. Well, hello and welcome back to the Next Gen podcast. It is good to have you here with me today, no matter where you are around the world. Welcome, welcome, welcome. It's good to have you back to the newest and latest episode of the Next Gen podcast, the last one too while we're here in New Zealand. In fact, I think in terms of the space-time continuum, we may already have moved by this time. I'm pre-recording this one slightly in advance so that we can have that space to move to Australia. Brisbane, our new home. Very, very exciting. You may not even care about that though. So whether you're here for the first time or for the first time in a long time, our heart, as always, with this podcast is that we would be able to equip, empower, and inspire a new generation of leaders to serve and invest into the next generation. A special welcome back to all of our elite podcast members. Yes, the Next Gen Nation, you know who you are. Welcome back as well. Hey, no matter where you are around the world and whatever platform you're listening on, whether it's Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, iHeartRadio, and all the others, welcome back. It's great to have you here with us today. As always, we do not know everything, but we do know something. And I hope that our something is your one thing that helps you move forward in your leadership journey and in whatever platform you are on as well. I'm so excited about this episode, part 1 and part 2. Already out, 4 things, I was just trying to swallow there, 4 things your leader is looking for from you. We've talked about proactive comms, we've talked about prayer, and very soon I'm going to talk about what it is we're talking about today. Lots of talking about. Every leader, just a reminder, should be a leader who is under leadership themselves. Whether you're a leader of a ministry, church, or small group, we should all be people who are under leadership. And because of this, we're all going to have leaders who are above us, who are looking for things from us as we're part of their team. So, we've talked about proactive communication. We've talked about prayer. And also, a massive thank you to everybody who shared with me how helpful these sessions have been, how it's really helped them. I had one person let me know that this was exactly the tension that they were facing with their leader above them. It was about proactive communication. They let me know that this really helped them communicate more proactively and has smoothed the tension. So super encouraging to hear and super good to know too that this content is helping. Today though, we're not talking about proactive comms. We're not talking about prayer. Today, we're talking about positivity. Now, positivity is one of those valuable attributes that can be easily misunderstood. As leaders, when we lack positivity, everything is harder and more painful for us. So many teams are struggling to produce fruit in their ministries, in their programs, whatever it is that they're leading, because positivity is missing. Positivity is the source of strength. It's going to be, the more I say positivity, the more it's messing with my head. Positivity is the source of strength to the leader, their leader, and those who they lead. Positivity is the source of strength to the leader, their leader, and those who they lead. Now, the Bible tells us that the joy of the Lord is our strength. That verse comes from a passage in the book of Nehemiah. Now, if you know anything about Nehemiah, this is a dude who's facing some pretty negative adversity. He reminds the people, though, that in everything that they're facing, that the joy of the Lord is their strength, and to rely on that joy as their strength. No matter how negative or tough a situation is, we still have so much to be positive about. We still have so much to find joy in. The truth is, though, I find so many Christians and leaders to be so negative about their world, the team that they're in, and even the people that they lead. And to be honest, these sorts of people, these sorts of leaders can find negative things in everything else. Often, this is done, though, in the name of being true to ourselves or being real, or this buzzword that's floating through all leadership circles at the moment, this pursuit of authenticity. For some reason, we think that this is a kingdom mentality, to be negative, to be cynical, to be hard done by, to find fault in things and be frustrated about things, that somehow that's kingdom mentality and that that's somehow the truest representation of us as Christians, but it's actually not. This is where people have a problem with joy and positivity, right? Because this is what people say. Oh, so you're saying that I just need to be happy and positive all the time, ignoring the truth, just faking it, being happy and clappy? No, not at all. Like, that's not at all what I'm trying to say when it comes to positivity. What I'm trying to say is positivity or joy is not the ignorance of reality. Rather, it's the acknowledgement of the facts that are in front of you right now and choosing to see the good in them no matter what. We always have a choice. When things happen, will we respond the same way we always do, negative and cynical, or will we see things differently through a lens of faith? When things are going hard and going wrong, you don't actually have to be negative with them. When you're facing a negative situation, you don't then have to be negative too. You don't actually have to be negative because things are hard. You don't have to find the bad and critical in every moment. You don't have to be the realist in the team. The truth is that for us, as a leader and as a member of the team, we are those who are filled with faith, hope, and optimism. We're not afraid of the future. We're not supposed to be the ones that are pulling things down consistently. Instead, we're supposed to be lifting things up. Joy is vital for producing the perseverance we need in ministry. I want to have a look at the book of James, chapter 1, verse 2 to 4. This is a really common passage of scripture. We're going to read from the New King James Version, but I want to have a look at this. It says, "My brethren, count it all joy." I love that, by the way, brethren. My brethren, count it all joy when you fall into various trials, knowing that the testing of your faith produces patience. But let patience have its perfect work, that you may be perfect and complete, lacking nothing. Crazy. All joy in various trials. That's a crazy statement. And to be fair, if that phrase doesn't sum up leadership, especially within the church context, I'm not sure what one will. All joy in various trials. The various trials that we face are vast. Maybe it's violence, language issues, cultural issues, pornography and sexual immorality, biblical literacy, church splits, TikTok theology, and more. The list always just seems to run and run and run. But here's what we're told to do in the face of all those various trials, that we're supposed to count it as all joy. As in, James is saying, be positive, carry a positive perspective, find the joy in all of these trials. Why? Because we know that through all of these various trials, it's producing patience. Now, this word patience in the Greek here in this passage of scripture is also translated as endurance or perseverance. And it's interesting to me that in the kingdom of God, patience, endurance, and perseverance are all linked. If you stop and ask, why is it that the culture of the world is to be cynical, to be negative, and to be real in that way? Well, why is it that way? I don't know if you've ever stopped and asked. I think it's because the world that we live in and the cultures that are attached are not kingdom culture. I think the devil doesn't want Christians being able to persevere. I think he wants us weak, complaining and grumbling and all the challenges of life that we face. In leadership, without this patience, without this perseverance, all the various troubles become too overwhelming and way too much to handle. Then what happens is, as leaders, we become cynical and overwhelmed by these things, unwilling to persevere. People do not pursue Jesus at this point, right? If we can't persevere, we don't pursue Jesus, and we end up drifting further and further away from him. The impact is that society then drifts away from him too. Why? Because the church, instead of persevering, peters out. We stop drifting towards God and we start drifting away from God. And that might seem familiar to the world that we're living in right now. Maybe we find ourselves in this situation because the leaders who should be leading gave up and into their cynical and negative perspectives in the name of realism and humanism, ending up lacking in everything. Because James says, look, you're going to this is what happens. You're going to be perfect. You're going to be perfect and complete, lacking nothing. So maybe as leaders, we're lacking everything when we find ourselves in this place. We end up lacking in everything. And because we're lacking in everything of his spirit, because we're lacking in everything that he is in us, what happens is we then deconstruct and we become disgruntled with God. All because as leaders, we chose not joy in a positive perspective, but anger, bitterness, and cynicism. Sounds pretty familiar, to be honest, with the world that we live in right now. That's why James is pretty clear. He's saying, guys, you're going to face all these trials and troubles. Why did you think being a Christian in a world that's not Christian was easy? Why did you Jesus says, if they hate me, guys, they're going to hate you. Like it's part of the package, but we need to choose our response. As leaders, what we have to do is hold on to joy. We have to hold on to a positive perspective. It's going to produce patience, which leads us to being complete and lacking nothing. Our job as leaders is to live like this and then help others live like this too. It's not enough just that we do this. As leaders, our job is to help others tap into this as well. And that's going to mean confronting some negative mindsets. It's going to mean speaking out against some of the things that are coming our way. Our positivity is important because it stirs faith in us, the people that we lead and those who lead us. Our positivity is huge. Our enthusiasm is significant. It has a ripple effect, not just to the people that we lead, to the people we lead with, but also to the people who lead us. There's no escaping the truth, okay? Life is hard. It is. Leadership is hard. Dealing with people's problems is hard. Why? Because of sin. Because of the result of the fall. Because we as humanity have chosen not to put God at the center and as such drifted away from God-centered living. So life is really hard. Like leadership is really hard. If we start to believe this lie that all of a sudden when we find Jesus or when we serve him, I'm getting really passionate. I was leaning into the microphone there. Let me just take a neck back. But the truth is this, is that it is hard. It is. Joy and positivity is not about neglecting that reality, but it's about saying life is hard, but man, there's some real gold in these hards. There's some really awesome things that we can experience and that others can experience too in the middle of this hardship. I don't know about you, but as a leader, seeing people come alive in God and in all that God has for them, walking away from the destructive patterns and lifestyles that they've chosen before and instead choosing the fullness of God, man, it's super rewarding. Like that's the good stuff. All of the hardship that we suffer as leaders is all to help people come to this revelation themselves, to give them the truth of the love of Jesus, to give them information, to make a choice. And if they choose Jesus and they start to live in this prosperous way, they start to see God for who they are, that right there. I don't think it gets any better than that. The challenge though is that this takes time. Time is so difficult. Since having Bowden, I understand that verse that says make most of the evil days. I used to think the days were fine. Like I was like, yeah, the days are good. Like we troll through them, we just get through them, we just keep going. Time ticks by, we grow, we take some losses, we take some wins. It's all good. But now having a son, I'm like, man, the time is evil. The days are evil. And we got to make the most of the time that we have. We never know when our time is going to end either. And we never know when those who we lead's time is going to end. Time is difficult. The challenge with joy is that we face time. And if we're going to help people step into all that God has for them, we're going to have to embrace time as well. We're going to have to understand that if we're going to see people step into everything that God has, we're going to have to face time, not with negativity, but with positivity. I said that really weird. Not with negativity, but with positivity. We're going to have to understand that for us as leaders, it's going to require some strength. It's going to require an attitude of gratitude and joy, not one of negativity and cynicism. Negativity and cynicism never advances anything. Joy and positivity, on the other hand, it builds. It's our strength. It helps us advance. It helps us take ground. Again, it's not the neglecting of all of this negativity, but it's accepting the facts and then applying faith. In the world that we live in, being cynical and negative is what's defined as being real. Have you noticed that? Oh, I'm just being real with you. I'm just saying it as it is. Someone needs to. Do they though? Like, maybe for some of us, we need to point it out. Maybe for some of us, we need it pointed out to us. But I think on the vast majority of times, at least for me anyway, I don't know how you feel as a leader, but at least for me, I feel like I'm quite aware of all the negative things that are going on in the earth. The culture of our world is one of negativity and cynicism, and it's defined as being real. But as Christians and as leaders, joy is us being real. It's joy. Joy is us being real. It's not being negative, cynical, or being able to point out all the facts. It's actually joy. It's understanding that, like, in the midst of all of this stuff, man, we've got a Jesus who still died for us while we were sinners. Before we even chose him, he chose us. Like, there is, if I've got breath in my lungs, sure, I might have a negative doctor's report. Sure, the doctors might tell me I can't conceive. Okay, sure, that's what happened to us. But you don't then stop and be like, well, now it's all over. Well, I guess we'll never have kids. You can succumb to that negativity and cynicism, or you can lead yourself through it with faith and joy and optimism. Absolutely there were down days. Absolutely there were down days. Of course, it's not this fake it till you make it style. Faith is going, yeah, I see the facts. I hear what the doctor says. Yes, I see what's going on right now. I see the bank balance is empty. I see this is not going the way that I hoped that it would. But I still apply faith that my God is bigger, that my God is greater. I'm preaching myself happy on a leadership podcast. Relax, Harry. Just chill. But I want to encourage you. I want to encourage you. For us, as Christians and as leaders, joy is supposed to be our default. Not being ignorant of reality, but intentional about our heart and our perspective. This is the key. When you're facing hardship, if you want to tap into joy, you have to seek by faith what God is doing now and seek to understand how God is going to use this for our benefit and the benefit of others too. See, if all you see is the negative and you're always the critic, maybe it's time to look inside yourself and ask yourself, why is it so hard for you to be positive? Why is it so hard for you to find the joy in your life? Maybe it's because an expectation gap has appeared. We talked about this in episode 10. I'd encourage you to go and have a look at that if you don't know what an expectation gap is, but maybe there's an expectation gap that's currently happening in your life. Maybe there's pride within your own thoughts, and that pride is leading to self-righteousness. Maybe it's a result of being isolated in your life. Maybe you're just doing life alone. I think that's why, by the way, as a Christian, it's so important that we don't forsake the gathering of the believers, that we actually get into the room on a Sunday regularly, not just to lead others, but to be led ourselves, to worship God ourselves, to seek God for ourselves so that we're not isolated, but we do life with God and with others as well. Maybe it's because you're carrying the emotional load of a lot of pastoral problems and you actually just need to offload that to a trusted source. Maybe it's because of some failure in the past that you've experienced. Maybe it's because of some uncertainty that's going on in your church or in your team right now. Maybe it's because you become too familiar with the things of God that are around you. Maybe it's because of some sort of childhood pain that you haven't resolved yet. Listen, whatever it is, I think it's time. It's time to deal with it now so that we can return back or maybe head for the first time to a place of joy and find our strength in Him. So what do I do though if I'm not sure what it is that's causing me to be like this? What do I do? The first thing you do is you ask God to reveal it to you. David said this in Psalm 139, verse 23 to 24. You probably know this if you've been around church for a while. David said this, "Search me, O God, and know my heart. Test me and know my anxious thoughts. Point out anything in me that offends you and lead me along the path of everlasting life." The first place you should always go when you're unsure about what's going on in your own heart and you need some revelation, the first thing you should do is not receive a text from your wife while you're doing a podcast. She just letting me know she's on her way home. So I'm going to have to wrap this up before she walks in with Bowden. Okay, so let's bring this to a close. The first thing you should do, do you like that? This is family life now. This is us with family. It's like, okay, cool, I'm on my way home. You better be done. The first thing you should do is go to God first. I think sometimes we take all of our problems to the leaders above us and we go, what's going on in my own heart? And we rely on them first. I want to encourage you as a leader, as a Christian, to go to God first, to seek humility, to seek His face through humility, to humble yourself before the Lord and go, God, search my heart. Test me. Know my anxious thoughts. Point out anything in me that offends you, God. Then you can lead me along the path of everlasting life. I reckon today, for some of you, this is the key. Who do you go to first? Who you go to first is going to determine how quickly you can find that joy and positivity. How quickly you can lock into that perseverance. If you've asked God and you can't see anything, that's when you go to a friend. You go to a peer. You say, brother, sister, if you're a girl, sister, brother, if you're a boy, iron sharpens iron. Show me right now where I'm blunt. Show me right now where something is going on in my life that I need correction on. The last place you should go to is your pastor, your leader. By the way, that asking your friend could be your wife or your husband, and I would encourage you to bring that to them first. Sometimes it's a brotherly chat that you need. Sometimes it's a sisterly chat that you need, but looping your spouse in that, in what you're going through and what's going on is really helpful as well. But the last place I want to encourage you to go to is your leader. Sometimes it requires a leadership first thing. After God. Maybe it's like, you know what, I've gone to God. This is what I feel like he's saying. I'm going to go talk to my leader about that. Awesome. Great. Sounds awesome. But just make sure that your leader isn't your first place you go to. Otherwise, you're relying on them before you're relying on the Lord. The Word of God has a lot of the solutions. God himself can speak and inspire. So make sure that you do this and get God to test you, because without joy or positivity, you will not have the perseverance required for leadership. I want to encourage you too that your positivity is not another person's responsibility. Oh, Harry, you don't know what they did. Oh, Harry, you don't know what they said. Oh, Harry, you don't know. Yeah, sure, but your response is still your responsibility. Joy, your positivity, is not another person's responsibility. So check yourself, is what I'm saying. In the nicest way possible, obviously with all the love, or don't. Or here's the thing, or don't. Keep living negative and cynical and see how that won't help you in the long run. I want to encourage you, friend, without perseverance, you will fall away. And so will the world around you too. Those around you, you need perseverance. You need this joy. You need this sense of positivity. Without this, you will never produce what the Lord has got for you to produce. So I want to encourage you today. Seek that out. Search your heart. Seek the Lord. Ask God to search out your heart and point out the things that you need to address. Repent quickly. Try those different prayer things we talked about last time, the prayer styles. Try that out and get right with the Lord today. Why? Because you need to get the positivity back. Your positivity stirs faith in the people that you lead, in the people you lead with, and the people who lead you. So try all that you can to get that joy and positivity back. I'm not saying this without having to face trials myself. There has been many times where I've got this right and many times where I've got this wrong. Can I tell you this? The times I've got that right and I've held on to my joy and my positivity, it's felt a little bit easier through the trials and through the storms. My wife, Annaliese, is so helpful for this. I'm naturally quite a critical guy. If you know me away from the podcast, you know that that's true. I overthink everything. I break everything down. And so naturally, it can be easy for me to be cynical and negative. But I'm having to learn to choose positivity. I'm having to learn to choose joy. That's not negating the things that are negative. That's not negating what may be true in front of us. My faith faces the facts and then applies faith to that situation. Anyway, let me know what you think. That's what I think anyway. I think that our leaders are looking for that from us. That's what I'm looking for from the people who I lead. Let me know what you think though. Send me an email, hello@harrysladenz.com. It's been so cool hearing the feedback that these things have been helpful. Love your thoughts. I love questions as well for Q&A episodes, but also just to keep the conversation going. You can do that via email, hello@harrysladenz.com, or via email, that's the same thing, or via Instagram @harrysladenz. That is it, though, for this episode of the Next Gen podcast. It's the last episode we're going to have for a while. I'm not sure when the next one is going to be. There is going to be a slight delay as we set up our home and our new lives in Brisbane, Australia. But thank you so much for joining me on every platform, no matter where you are around the world. Thank you so much for joining me. Make sure you like, rate, and share this with all of your teams or people that you think this is going to benefit from. This will be funny, though, because they'll get this and they'll be like, oh, you think I'm a negative and cynical person, do you? You know, because they're negative and cynical. I'm just kidding. But feel free to share this with people who you think it's going to bless as well. Obviously, we don't spend any money on advertising. This is a free resource, and we'd love to get it in the hands of as many people as we possibly can. If you do post it on social media, make sure you tag me @HarrySladeNZ on Instagram, and I'd love to repost it for you as well. If you're on YouTube, please subscribe and like this video, this episode. If you're on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, rate and follow. It'll be super helpful as well. If you want to be part of the Next Gen Nation and you're not, you're missing out on a huge other part of the podcast experience, feel free to do that. You can head to the website. You'll get copies of the show notes, exclusive access to Q&As that don't happen on this platform, and more. Make sure you head to the website right now, harrysladenz.com. You can do that, register for free, and be part of the Next Gen Nation. You can also ask questions, by the way. That's where the Q&A episodes come from. It's the Next Gen Nation's questions as well. Do that. It's free to register. Let it bless you. That is it, though, for now. Listen, every Next Gen leader, be encouraged. Your story is changing history, leading the legacy, and changing the tide. So, don't quit. Keep the grip. and I'll see you very soon. Well, hopefully soon, in a while, here on the Next Gen podcast. Love you heaps.